this, the latest in the series of New Age Business Briefings brought to you by the SABC. And we've been talking, we started chatting a little bit about unions just before the break. Gideon Duplessis raised a question about Lonmin's breach in Deputy President Motlante's framework agreement. And Mike says that this is a conversation that continues and hopefully an amicable situation or resolution will come to the fore. Mike, let me ask you, from outsiders looking in, we're getting a sense that the unions is a battleground that's taking place, and that this is part of the problem. And I'm wondering, from an employer's point of view, what are some of the challenges that you're facing when you've got these unions, whether it's AMCU, whoever, fighting each other? And yet, at the end of the day, you need to run a business and get a business going. What are some of the challenges that you're facing? And hopefully, Mr. Zokwana will be here to give us their view from their side of the equation.
I think it's critical to note, Peter, that I've said earlier that mining contributes to the growth of this economy. And globally, mining plays an important role. In the process of trying to run the businesses as the mines, to contribute to the economy, to grow those mines and create jobs, create wealth, and eradicate poverty. In that process, the complexity you need to deal with is to deal with, obviously, you have unions. Organized labor is part of the business. It's the conversations that we engage in with our unions when we deal with them, when they organize in our business. We don't wish them away. We don't say we want to operate in an environment where there are no unions at all. Secondly, it's the sincerity from both parties, including unions, to talk about those issues that we believe can ensure that we grow this economy, we grow this industry rather than destroying this industry. I've mentioned the issue of productivity. I've mentioned the issue of wage increases. We need to start talking seriously about the issue of costs and all those issues. Otherwise, we'll be left behind globally if we don't deal with those. So it is a challenging environment. And us operating as the mining industry, especially the leadership of the mining industry, the Chamber of Mines, our members, we don't run unions. We cannot say we're dealing with the National Union of Mine Workers, Solidarity and UASA, and that's the end. There are changes that take place all the time. There's a new union that has arrived. Who are we as the miners or as the industry to say we don't want this union, we want the other union? Any union that comes in, as long as it's complying with the laws of this country, as long as there's no violence, and we ensure that we deal with stability.
All right, so, again, from an outsider looking in, it seems when we have these wage negotiations, yes, there's a bit of negotiation that takes place, but from where business is starting and where for labor is starting, it seems like the gap is so wide, and we've seen there's deadlocks. So who's conning who? Is business just not wanting to pay, or is labor asking far too much, and that maybe these unions are misleading their members? What is the scenario? Are you guys trying to keep profits and keep yourself wealthy at the expense of the workers, or are the workers just asking for too much?
I think we need to be sincere with reality. All of us, we need to be realistic that businesses must survive and grow. At the same time, we've got challenges with relate. As DG said earlier, we've got communities within which we operate. We've got employees, we've got different stakeholders. All of them have expectations. Much as we have shareholders who put in capital into the businesses and they expect dividends, we have to be realistic of how that business is run. Much as we have employees who expect higher wages, we have to be realistic about this. If we start being unrealistic, all parties, we are going to destroy this industry, Peter. Outsiders who look at what we do as an industry, I have watched over a period of time that there's an element of pessimism at times, there's an element of mistrust, and there are those people who have used mining as a whipping boy, We have reached a stage where this industry has to survive to create jobs, and everything revolves about being realistic as parties.
Okay. DG, Mike talked about violence, and sadly this is a theme that we see quite often, especially when the negotiations break down and we start getting into the actual strikes themselves. How do we move away from that? Because that really ended us in the whole Marikana situation, didn't it?
I think it is important to ensure that we strengthen our partnership. That's all what is required. Partnership, ensuring that we put South Africa first. And that is very critical. If we are not going to put South Africa first, we are not going to address this matter. And that will mean, we prioritize our needs, our interests above those of our individual agendas. That's the heart of the problem. If we can address that, I think we'll go a long way. But also, we have to ensure that the process of the deputy president, of ensuring that everybody comes around the table is supported. We need to ensure that we implement that framework agreement, because the elements in those framework agreements are aimed at ensuring that we, amongst others, stabilize the industry. If you don't stabilize the industry, you're not going to maximize your production. If you're not going to maximize your production, you are going to affect foreign exchange earnings among others in this country, which is very critical. So we need to focus on stabilizing the industry and ensuring that we can reach full production in all sectors, from gold, iron, platinum, manganese. We have to ensure that that happens.
Okay. Table number 3, Tapelo Mkwena. Table number 3. Okay, please stand up and get a microphone to you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Tapelo Mkwena, and I've got 2 questions. I've been attending Lekgotla for past 3 years or so. I think it is more of talk than action. And my first question is, when are we going to start training the youth to become artisans in this country? Because I believe there's more that need to be done around that. Question number 2 is, the entry into mining sector is difficult, especially for PDI, previously disadvantaged individuals. This is a cry for help. We cannot really tolerate this going forward, because I believe we have the part to play, and we want to add value into the minerals and beneficiation of this wealth of this country. So please, as Chamber of Mines, and I believe really we're not really getting what we desired. We as black people, we're not happy about the way things are doing or the way things are going, because we believe we are not really getting empowered the way we should be. And as far as I'm concerned, we even tried to have the training center to train artisans. We have knocked many doors whereby we were saying we have accredited training center. We want to train our own fellow brothers, but the doors are just closed. So please do something. This is a really warning. I'm saying let us do something that is right, just to empower the youth and the black people in this country. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Let me start with you, DG, actually, because right at the top he says these Lekgotlas are all talk and no action. And you get these gatherings, whether it's WEF, and you guys come together and you have a nice little sit down, tea breaks, and business deals get done. But do we really get the issues sorted? Is this going to be another talk show? DG?
I don't think it is another talk shop. And I believe that the way the program has been structured, it has been structured in such a way that issues which will emanate from these discussions can be streamlined into existing processes. Mike mentioned earlier the MIGDET process, whereby all stakeholders participate. So those issues can be streamlined there and be implemented. And I think it will be incumbent upon all participants to ensure that the issues which come out of these discussions are implemented through the NICTED. He also mentioned the issue of youth and ensuring that youth are provided with the appropriate skills.
Training.
I think government has certainly taken note of that. They know that that is extremely important. And I will actually ask you to meet our Chief Inspector of Mines. He's here, he's the chairman of the Mine Qualification Authority, because they have got programs there which are training artisans. They've got programs which are giving student bursaries. They've got a number of programs which are providing skills for the youth. So I would actually ask you after this meeting to meet with him and just discuss a few of these issues with him.
And Mike, how do we create more Mike Tekes and Patrice Motsives?
You know, I was going to make an interesting comment to that. Prior to 2002 and 2004, when the MPRDA came into effect, you never had the Exaros of this world, you never had the ARMS of this world, you never had all those companies that we see playing in the space. The key question is it enough? It's not enough in a population where you still see poverty. It's not enough where you still see aspiring young people who wish to come into the industry, to this industry. It is important to note that the barriers to entry are very high. I am involved in the coal mining industry, where you still realize that some of the people who want to develop their mines, their own mines, will need between 100 million to almost 2 billion rand. The funding becomes an issue. There are quite a number of obstacles, but I believe there's more work that still needs to be done in transforming the industry in terms of ownership. Then comes the second part, which is mentioned today, about skills development. We've got the MQA, which is critical for the mining industry. We need to accelerate on that, but there's good work that's happening in the MQA. And I would like the person who made a comment to keep in touch with the MQA and find out what is happening. We know that our education system is facing challenges, but I am one of those people who feel uncomfortable when we become pessimistic about our own country and our own issues in the country and say, let's tackle them directly. There's still room to improve.
Okay. All right. Theo Josias is in table number 15. Theo?
Good morning. My question is to government, and I just want to understand that in addition to policy direction, does government feel that it is doing enough, and specifically in the light of the current labor situation that we're facing in South Africa?
Okay. Are you doing enough? DG?
I think so. I think so. I think we have really achieved a lot as government, especially in terms of transforming this industry, as I've mentioned earlier on. You know, we come from a situation whereby, I'll give an example. In the 1997s or around there, we had plus minus 800 mines. We are now having plus minus 1,600 mines. And in the last 5 years, okay, our employment in the industry was below 500,000, and we have pushed it to about 500,000 employees in the industry. You know, fixed direct investment in the industry has increased in the last 5 years. So when you look at that whole package, you'll see that we have really achieved quite a lot of things which, under this context, were not going to be easy. We have lots of companies which are interested in investing in the mining sector of South Africa. But we have also realized that, you know, we cannot only focus on the mining area only, or the mining phase of mining, but we also have to look at the exploration part of mining. That is why in the last 2 years, government decided to invest a lot of money in that part, which is exploration through the Council for Geoscience. Here we realize that what is critical is for us to ensure that we have quality geoscientific information, to attract investment. If you look globally, investment in the mining sector is actually attracted by one of the critical area, which is the geological side. And there, government has put a lot of money to ensure that we attract investment. But we're also going to look at the downstream beneficiation of the minerals. In that area, we'll have to create an enabling environment to attract investment. But when you look at it and say, in the last 10, 14 years, we have achieved quite a lot as a country.
All right, talking about labor, I mean, Mr. Investor is busy looking at South Africa right now and he's thinking, geez, am I brave enough to go open a mine in South Africa right now? Labor is expensive, labor is going to go on strike, and the labor laws are extremely difficult to negotiate. This is what their perception is. Whether that's real or not is another scenario. But what are you doing as government? Because he's asking, are you doing enough? Particularly around labor laws, because that's one thing you can influence. So that Mike can manage his business without onerous labor laws in his way.
You see, if you want a vibrant mining industry, you need to create an enabling environment. And it's not only around labor laws, it's around the whole legislation which governs the mining industry. You have to ensure that you have got a mining code which can attract investors. Okay? And I think we have one. We have a very vibrant, strong mining code which I believe attract investors. You have got to have a tax legislation which is competitive. We have got to look at the labor issues, the LRA. I think our LRA is progressive. But if you look at the whole package, it's just about how you implement them. If you look at the history in the last, since the new government came into power, you look at the whole history, you can realize that we have got progressive legislation. We have implemented them effectively, and I believe that if we continue doing that and ensure that we implement all of them, they will continue to have this vibrant mining industry. It's not only about labor, it's about the whole package. I mean, our tax system is competitive.
Okay, Mike, I know that you're wearing a few hats here, one as an employer, one as the Chamber of Mines, and one as a friend of the department. So I have to ask you this, is the department, is the legislators, are they doing enough for you? And are they doing enough for the industry for it to be competitive?
Peter, there's one word when you talk about Mr. Global Investor and Mr. Local Investor. There's one word called certainty and uncertainty. The policymaker should create certainty for me. If you read the report from the Fraser Institute globally, led by Fred McMahon, who will be part of the Mining Lekgotla talking to us, it is critical to note that legislation in a country must create certainty. The DMR, the Department of Labor, the Department of Water Affairs and Environment, all those departments must create certainty for us. That is critical to us. When there are amendments that come up in any of those in any of the legislation, it's consultation to ensure that you consult the parties that are involved in that, who are impacted upon by that legislation. Number two, ensure that there's no ambiguity that leads to uncertainty. Then people start worrying about as to whether is this country the country that I can invest my money in. So to answer your question, the partnership for me is critical to ensure that there's effective consultation. When the DMR right now says to me, we need to talk about downstream beneficiation. I'm glad that DG talks about exploration because he's a geologist, obviously. But beneficiation is coming up, it becomes part of the discussion. It's consultation, discussing these issues and ensuring that everybody understands where legislation goes to. And that creates certainty for everybody.
Are they clear? Are they certain?
That is why I'm saying any amendment that comes in it's that partnership. If there's no partnership and we're surprised all the time, then it will lead to uncertainty.
All right, table number 1, Philip Chilwan.
Morning. I think you've already touched on beneficiation. We've been mining gold since 1896 up to 1996, which was a period of 100 years. And I grew up in the gold mines and I missed up on the beneficiation. What are we doing now to make sure that 80% of the world manganese sits in South Africa and also 73% of the chrome deposits in Limpopo? So what do we do in terms of beneficiation to make sure that we don't miss the boom that we had for the gold mines in respect of the manganese and the chrome mine? And the second question was the Richards Bay coal terminal. I think we're planning to increase to 91 million tons. What are the plans there in terms of the junior mining individuals or consortium to make sure that they enter into the world of exporting coal, especially the new entrants, and bearing in mind that we want to do 91 million tons per year through the Richards Bay coal terminal? Thank you.
Okay, so I think both questions are for both of you. So let's start with you, DG.
All right. Well, the issue of beneficiation is extremely important in our country because, as you know, mineral resources have got a limited life. At some point, they won't be there. So it is important that we start to ensure that we invest in that area of downstream beneficiation of our mineral in the country. What we have done as South Africa, as a government, we have put together a beneficiation strategy, which is already there. It has identified critical value chains, which we have got to focus on. This include iron value chain, titanium value chain, platinum value chain, the energy value chain, and also the jewelry value chain. Those are the areas where we say, let's prioritize these 5 value chains. But now we're currently working on developing implementation plans for this strategy. It will be extremely important that I think stakeholders participate as we take this process forward. Most countries which are currently developed, have actually focused in this area. You look at countries like Japan, countries like China. They are basically beneficiating these minerals, which in most cases come from South Africa. Then when we look at the whole issue of coal export, it is important that we ensure that previously disadvantaged people participate in this environment. And we will, through our mechanism, ensure that junior miners also can export through the terminals. And I think Mike is involved in that terminal. He can say more about that.
Okay, Mike?
Firstly, Peter, the issue of beneficiation, we are involved in discussions with the DMR in terms of progressing the whole beneficiation phase in our legislation and in the industry. So DG has touched on that. On the Richards Bay Coal Terminal, I'm the chairman of the terminal in my other life, Peter. And number one, the terminal, the nameplate at the terminal is 91 million tons that we can take through. Last year, the Richards Bay Coal Terminal did 68.4 million tons exported out of the country. We want to see participation. We want to embrace and involve the junior coal miners and the black miners, whichever way you look at it. We want them to participate. There is the Quattro program, which was created in 2003, 4 million tons allocated at the time to junior coal miners. Is that enough? The critical part is to answer the key questions to arrive at the key point, which is, A, we can expand the terminal and take it to 110 million tons. We need a partnership to work with the rail, that is Transnet Freight Rail. In the past month, we've seen great performance from Transnet. They've given us almost 35 trains a day at times, 30 to 35 trains. So the performance has improved. You're seeing capacity coming out of Transnet, and you'll see capacity coming out of Richards Bay Coal Terminal. The second part is, as a country, we need to acknowledge that we need coal for ESCOM. Our power stations, we still have coal-fired power electricity. 94% of our electricity, we still use coal. So we still need coal for ESCOM. So it is critical to acknowledge that we are working on those issues to, at the end of the day, invite black miners or the junior coal miner to participate in the terminal.
Okay. Table number 1, Hladima Shebo, I think.
Thanks, Peter. My two questions. One refers to the meaningful implementation of the mining charter. We have seen quite a lot of upheavals in the country, particularly around the areas that are affected by the mining itself. It is believed that the mining charter has not meaningfully impacted those areas. Therefore, the question is there an alternative tool which is going to enable meaningful and direct transformation in those areas and areas that are actually labor-sending areas within the country, your likes of Lusikisiki, KZN, and the likes. The second question is also linked to the very question to say, what is the lifespan of the bankable mining resources of the country? Reason being that the legislations or the framework which we're introducing as a country, it's creating hopes, and the question is, are those hopes really achievable promises in relation to what is available? Because there is no meaning in introducing statutes or codes if the resources will be depleted in the next 5, 10, 20, 30 years. Because we'll be creating false, hopes for the country, and there'll be riots and everything. Thank you.
Okay. Both of you again. Start with you, Gigi.
I think that's where I started about mining being part of community. Each and every mine, when you look at South Africa, let's look at South Africa, you'll find that almost all our mines are in one way or another, linked to communities, be they local communities or labor-sending areas. Okay? And we came with the social and labor plan to ensure that we empower local communities. This is actually part of the transformation package which I talked about earlier on. What is critical here is enforcement, because the tools are there. As government, we decided that we will enforce these tools. The charter will be part of it. Come 2014, we will be assessing how we fared when it comes to that. And also, government has started a process through which local communities can be empowered in terms of living conditions, in terms of economic development. This process is run in the presidency. A lot of work has already been done when it comes to this area. We have prioritized the Platinum Western Belt area around Rustenburg, Bujanala area there, whereby a few areas have been identified. And housing there has already started to empower the local communities. So when you look at it, certainly there are a number of initiatives which are already in place to empower local communities. And I think all what is needed is to ensure that we enforce the legislation, we enforce all those issues which are captured in the charter. And I think we will achieve quite a lot when it comes to that.
And Mike, sadly, it is a dwindling resource, isn't it? At some point, mines close, and so lifespan of our resources, national mining resources, is an important question to ask.
I think it's critical to note that, yes, it's a depleting resource. If you go to the gold mining sector, the key question that comes up is, where do we open up new mines to try and replace the ones that have come to the end of their lives? Number two, we need to ensure that we're not creating ghost towns when we leave those mining areas. Therefore, DG has touched on the social and labor plan. The second part, you look at the platinum belt, that is the PGM space. Everybody is saying, is the traditional northwest area, Rustenburg, still going to go on for another 50 or 60 years or 70 years? Those are the key questions that we as the mining industry, that is why I'm talking about exploration, geologists, we're talking about the investor and the communities within which we operate to ensure that we strengthen that engagement about such discussions. Let me add on, you look at the coal mining space, the key question is the Wheatbank coal fields, when they come to the end of their lives, where the concentration of your power stations is there, will we move to the waterback? Can you invest in the waterback? Can you take a risk and invest in the waterback, hoping that you'll bring coal to these power stations? Those are the key questions that need urgency from our side as business, the regulator, and labor.
DG?
Maybe to add on that, if you look at the country as it is now, in terms of the future, it has got huge potential. And this potential is around its geological attractiveness. There's no doubt that it is still amongst the top when it comes to that. And why I'm saying this, a few people used to say, no, well, we will not discover new platinum deposit. There's a company which has just discovered a huge platinum resource, which people had not discovered. So in terms of geological attractiveness, we are still amongst the best in the world. But what is most important here is that we also have world-class geoscientific information to back that. And the investment which government is currently putting in that area will ensure that the industry thrives for many, many years to come. But we also have known resources like in manganese, which will take many years. I mean, people are estimating that we'll mine those resources for well over 500 years to even 1,000 years. Okay? The platinum, our platinum resources will still mine them for many, many years. So the future for the mining industry is certainly bright. All what we need to do as stakeholders in the industry is to say, how do we manage these resources for the benefit of the people of South Africa?
Mike?
Peter, I think people should be aware as well that in 2016 we are hosting the World Geology Conference in South Africa, which is a global conference. And that conference will be important to the country because we'll be having global players who are participating and looking at us as South Africans, and us as well. Nothing stops us from looking beyond South Africa.
Okay, right. On that note, we're going to take another quick break. After that, I want to get a voice from Labour as well, and we'll get Gideon du Plessis to represent Labour for us today and ask him